Hi everyone, right, in this little tutorial I'm going to show you how to actually put buttons on kind of the correct way, which I've been taught by many tailors. The waistcoat has been finished and I've just put all the buttons on. I'm going to do the last button. Before we put the last button on, I'm going to show you to actually get the placement of your buttons. The best way is to actually fold. Can you see? You fold over the wrong side to the wrong side, so the right sides are on the outside. Place them together. So this is what I'm doing for a waistcoat. Okay, so you can do the same for shirts or jackets or whatever. Place them together, make sure they're level, and then I use my little chalk. Now, there's two ways. Traditionally, tailors will actually, so you can actually see this. They'll actually use a little razor blade, or you can use your finger, and you can actually just shave off with your finger some of the chalk, and it will actually go into the actual hole, and then you can actually see. I put too much chalk on, but you get the idea. Okay, you'll get the mark. Or I just use a simpler way. You can see these chalk pencils, and then you would just mark, kind of chalk mark, just place it. Yeah, you see, and that's how you can actually mark your little mark, and that's what you do. So I'm just going to do the bottom one, because the bottom one just needs the bottom button needs sewing on. So I'll just place that together, and then I'll just mark through the little buttonhole I made. I make buttonholes by hand as well. In Bespoke we do most things by hand. Okay, and there we go. So you can see, I'll just zoom in a little bit for you there. Just bring that out. You can actually see the little mark of the chalk. Okay, now I suggest that you all try, because I've seen some tailors or designers or whoever, a lot of sewers, they'll just use like a normal thread, and then what they do is they'll just, whatever length they get, and then they'll just thread it, they'll just double it. Okay, and then if it's especially weak thread, they'll double it, and then they'll place it together, the two strands of thread. They'll just put it together, and then I'll just put it through a needle. Okay, put it together, and then basically you'll have 4 strands in. I don't like that method, because the more strands you put through and knot up, they'll actually knot up. As you placing the needle through the fabric, it'll knot up. So I don't like that method. Now sometimes we'll actually use what I'm going to show you now. This is called button thread. It's actually designed to actually sew on buttons, and I think Gutterman do it. And this is a bunch I got from my tailors. There's a few colours of these, and that's how they've come. Okay, so you just take off one strand from the bottom, and then I'm just going to just show you, and it's come undone. Now this is a proper button thread. I can't break this. It's really strong, hence why they use it for buttons. It's really, really strong. I can't break it. It'll slice through my fingers. Okay, so always when you're sewing on buttons, please everyone, always use button thread. You can get it from most places. Okay, I think Gutterman, which is a big brand, they'll sell button thread. So just ask, do you sell like button thread, and you'll get this. Okay, this is old school button thread. Okay, so I'm going to use this now. I've threaded my needle already, just to save time for the video. So, okay, right, now sometimes some tailors will actually try and strengthen the thread, but with button thread you don't need to. But some tailors will, they might not have button thread around, so they've got to strengthen the thread a bit more to stop it from knotting up. So it's what we call beeswax. You can get this from many tailor trimming merchants. Okay, now what they do, you just get the thread and you just glide it through the beeswax. Okay, just a couple of times, once, twice, 3 times, it doesn't really matter, to be quite honest. Okay, and then what you do, you get a piece of scrap fabric or a piece of paper, it doesn't really matter, and then fold it over, place your thread in there, and you need to melt that wax on the thread. Okay, so you place it in there, get your iron, and then just melt, put a bit of steam in if you want to, and just melt that thread. Okay, go a couple of times through. Okay, the beeswax has actually melted the wax onto the thread now. Now this will become stable. I can never say that word. It strengthens the thread more, and it actually, the most important thing, it stops the thread from knotting. Because the more you actually, especially when you're doing buttons, threading buttons, it has a tendency to knot. Some of your threads do, but I do suggest you always get a button thread, and because it's strong, as you can see, it's really, really strong. I can't break this at all. Okay, so always get it. Gutterman sell it, and loads of places, haberdashery places may sell it, and but all Tailor trimming merchants will sell it. Okay, so always try and so you can use beeswax if you want to, if you've got weak thread, and it will strengthen it as well. Okay, so I'm gonna use, if I can get my thread now, now I've actually threaded my needle, right, and I'm going to just use one strand. Okay, so I'm going to knot one side. Some tailors will actually double it, but because this is strong thread, you don't really need to double it. I mean, as I say on my courses and what I teach my students, always experimenting. Okay, experiment, and you'll get your own way of doing things. I'm just showing you my way. Okay, so I just use it's just one single strand. Okay, so as I said, sometimes we'll double it, but I find when I double it, sometimes it will have a tendency to knot, so where one strand won't. Okay, now we've marked the buttonhole. Okay, so I'm just going to go into my last button now. I don't like putting a knot from the wrong side, because you don't want to see a knot there, so I always put it on the right side. So I'm just going to put my needle through so I can actually see where it's going to sit, where it's going to be. So then I'll just mark it, on that side with my needle, and I'll go through it. Okay, now the knot is on the right side. Okay, so there we go. I'm just going to get rid of a little bit of the thread at the end of this knot. Don't need that. Right, so it's already knotted. Okay, so now the knot I always do from the right side of the fabric, because it's going to be hidden by the button. Okay, so I'm going to use my silver metal buttons here. This has got a 4-hole, this is what we call a 4-hole button, you can see. So there are 2-hole buttons. Some tailors will use 2, some tailors will use 4, but there's nothing set in stone which button holes to use. Some tailors say, well, it's a 4-hole button, so it won't become loose like a 2-hole button. So majority of tailors will use 4-hole buttons. So there's nothing set in stone. You can use 2-hole buttons if you want to, but majority of tailors will actually use this because the very reason you've got 4 holes, so it will stabilize the button more, and it won't break off. So, but anyway, you do experiments. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to come back onto the right side. I've gone to the wrong side, remember, it's knotted from the right side, so I'm just going to come back. Now the secret is, some tailors don't like, I learnt from one tailor, and they didn't like the knots on the wrong side, so some tailors will actually will just catch the fabric inside and come back out. But I don't like that way, because you need to stabilize that button, and you've got to go through the thickness, all the thicknesses of the fabric, for it to stabilize and to be strong. I feel that if you just use that needle and just go in a little bit, you don't go through to the other side, it won't be strong, and the button could actually break off the thread. Okay, so some tailors will go through. I go through to the wrong side. Okay, so all layers of the fabric. Now you want to get you don't want too much thread showing, so I come back where that thread was. I will just come back virtually next to it, and then come back to where I was. Okay, so where I was originally, so I've come back to where my knot is. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, now I'm going to put the button on. Now we got to create what we call a shank. A shank is a space between the button and the fabric. When you actually button up your any garment you got, especially jackets and waistcoats or whatever, you need a little space to accommodate the buttonhole going over to the button. You can't have it tight, so the buttonhole's got to have a little bit of slack what they call a shank. You build a shank, and it's that little space that allows the buttonhole to sit on the button, okay? Otherwise it can pull. This can pull, the buttonhole can pull, because you don't have enough space. So always remember that. It's what we call a shank. So we're going to actually build a little shank, okay? So I'm just going to just place these buttons. So I prefer to do mine cross, like a diagonal. You can actually do it down, vertical, horizontal, but in the tailoring world we do it on the cross, and I'm going to just show you it's done on the cross, okay? So I'm just going to place my, so I've gone through the hole. I'm going to go on the diagonal, the next hole, which is the diagonal hole, okay? So I'm just going to just place that there. It's going to go down, okay? And then I'm just going to just bring that down now, okay? Now I don't want to be tight when I'm actually going to go through to the wrong side, okay? So I'm just going to just, I'm trying to get a good view for you here. I'm just going to just come back where I came up here, by that knot. Just come back down through, and I want to be catching nearly as close to where I was originally. I don't want to be having lots of different threads coming side by side. I want to try and get it as neat as I can, so it's got to try and come back on itself, okay? Now when I pull that through, okay, when I pull that through, okay, I'm just going to just pull that through. Don't pull it too tight. I'm putting my little finger below it, okay? I'm just going to just bring this down, and I'm just going to just use my gauge, my eye. I don't want it to be tight. I'm not going to pull that tight. I want to have a little bit of slack in the button, and that's where your shank will be. You'll see how we make a shank, okay? Now some people will put a toothpick, or I'm not too sure what else they put, these little devices that will raise it up, and then you can actually just stitch through, take off the little toothpick or whatever, and you'll get your little shank area already. But try and just gauge it and just have a bit of slack in it. So don't be tight, don't pull it tight, okay? And then I'm just going to come back, okay? And then I'm just going to go through to the other buttonhole. So the empty buttonhole on the other diagonal space, okay? I'm just going to just bring this up, okay? Don't be tight with it, okay? Please, okay? And then I'm just going to just come back, and I'm going to leave it flat there now. And then I'm just going to just come and just go straight through. I'm going to catch it, and I want to come where I left off originally, okay? And that's how I'm going to do the buttonholes, okay? So that's one set of buttonholes through both diagonal lines. I'm going to do 2 or 3. Now if you've got a strong button thread, you only need to do about 2, okay? So I'm just going to come back in. So I'm going to start again on my diagonal line at the top, okay? Don't pull it, leave a little bit of slack, okay? And then I'm just going to just come back down through that other diagonal line, okay? And come virtually back into that where I was originally, okay? Because you don't want it to have messy buttons on the wrong side, okay? You want to try and keep it as neat as you can, okay? So there's a bit of slack there, see? If I can put my little finger just under the button, we've got enough slack, okay? Can you see that? So it's not tight, it's slack. So I'm just going to do one more now. Keep it 2. You can have 3 lots. And I'm just going to just do one more for good luck. And then on your last one, okay, as you come over the diagonal hole on the other side, just catch a little bit of that fabric and don't go through, just come back on the top of the fabric, okay? Alright, and that's what I'm going to do there. And then don't pull it tight when you pull it. Now, there we go, that's finished now. Now we're going to create a shank. There's many ways to create a shank. I learnt from a great tailor to do this way, and I love his way. I'm going to show you this way. So tailors now, they'll actually wrap round it, and then push the needle through the middle. I don't like that way. So I'm going to show you this way. So get your needle, get your thread. So I'm using, wrap it round your left, okay? And then you're going to create a loop. Can you see that now? I'm going to create a loop around my actual hand. Can you see? It's coming back. And then just get your thumb under, and now you've got a loop, and then you just put it on over the button, okay, and then it's like a little lasso, whatever you call them, okay, and then you just put it back. Can you see that what I'm doing now? So just like a little loop it around your hand, and then put it over the button, and then it just loops actually into the button, okay? I'll do it one more time, really slow for you. It's a bit more tricky when you do it slow, but you get my drift. So come round. So now you've created a little loop, can you see? With my hand. Create a little loop, and then put that loop over the button, okay? And then I'll just pull the thread tight around it, okay? Can you see that? I'll do it about 4 or 5 times. That's what I'm going to do. 3, 4, 5, and I'll just do one more for good luck. 6, okay, can you see? And there we have it. Now we've got a little shank. There's a shank in there. You can put it, you know, a few more times if you want to. If you're, you'd like a thicker shank, then just do it a few more times. You know, I'll leave that entirely up to you, okay? Once you're happy with that, the little shank in there, you can see, then you get your needle and you're going to push it through the middle, because you need to secure now those loops, okay? So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to just push that needle through the middle of that shank, okay? Don't pull things too tight, okay? And then we finish now. All we've got to do, go to the wrong side, okay? And we're going to come back to where we were when we first started. Can you see? Now we've just got one little thread showing, and that's how you should do things, okay? So I'm just going to just secure it now, maybe 2 or 3 times, doesn't really matter. That's 1. Just go underneath. Don't go through to the right side. You're just catching the wrong side. 2. And then last one, you bring it back, just like a little back stitch, and then go forward quite a lot. I just come back, I don't know, maybe half an inch or something, go forward. Don't catch the right side, please, okay? And then there you go. And that's it, there you have it, okay? I'm just going to chop that off. See the wrong side? You've got very little thread showing, and that's how it should be, okay? And there's your shank. You've got your shank there. And that's it. And then, because that shank will allow the button to be, the buttonhole to be placed over without pulling, because you have to accommodate that button, okay? So that, and it would just be placed over, and then you button up your waistcoat, and the buttonhole actually will accommodate, see now? The buttonhole will accommodate that shank. It won't pull because you've got a little space in between the button. And there we go. And that's all the buttons in. That's how you should do all your buttons on all your garments, okay? Always try and use, especially when you're doing jackets, waistcoats, whatever, always use your button thread, okay? Your strong button thread. And I just use 1 strand, okay? So experiment with 2 strands, it's up to you. So on that note, this waistcoat is ready now, and that's it. And I'll see you very soon on my next segment. Okay, ciao for now, thanks.